Let's dance! I'm Axel Garcia. This is MWG Story Reviews, and today we're going in depth into several Quibi exclusive shows. And I have to admit, Quibi right now is a ghost town. No one's talking about it, no one's giving it any publicity in the media, or just like no one's talking about it, no one's downloading the app, no one's signing up for the 90-day free trial, which I'm pretty sure now it's like 30 days. No one's giving Quibi a chance, and because of that, I don't think it's going to survive much longer. Their whole motto was quick bites on the go. So like whether you're on the subway in New York City or you're in your car, you could casually watch some quick stories that are all less than 10 minutes, and then you got this like turnstile that you could turn things vertical and watch them horizontal. All those things just aren't working right now for Quibi. They did update the app to add some changes like episode numbers, like episode 1 out of 14. Little tweaks here and there. They also have like daily essentials where you got something called the replay, where ESPN just goes over all the sports news, and yeah, there's not a bunch of sports news, but it's a high quality show since it's made by ESPN. And then you got like the Weather Channel, like NBC News, all these other daily essentials. Those are pretty good, but right now we're just going to talk about the shows. And one of the only horror shows right now on Quibi is called 50 States of Fright. And 50 States of Fright is just surrounded by the fact that a couple of untold stories are found in each of the states in the United States. I'm pretty sure right now there's like 5 different anthology stories on Quibi. And the first one is The Golden Arm. And it takes place in Michigan, where we have this wife who's super pretty and just like overly cares about her appearance, and she has to always look the best. And then she marries this lumberjack who's kind of poor, kind of in debt. And once upon a time, the wife gets in this little incident, her arm gets cut off, and since the wife wants to look normal, she's like, let's get a golden prosthetic arm. And the lumberjack's like, I'm gonna have to go more in debt, but fine. And eventually she gets the golden arm. Supposedly metal just doesn't work as a prosthetic arm because it goes into your blood. That's what they said on the show. A little bit of too much of a reach, but it's a horror show, so you're gonna have to expect things that aren't entirely in the ordinary. And this short story is super predictable. Like I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, and it happened. And what happened was that the wife started to die, and her last wish was, bury me with the golden arm. And that's what the lumberjack did, but then he was like, man, I really do need some money. So then he digs up the grave, takes out the golden arm, and yes, the wife comes up alive and ends up killing the lumberjack. Yeah, predictable. And then you also have this another story with like the ball of twine, which is like Kansas, where this daughter gets stuck in a huge ball of twine, kind of freaky, and the whole town is like eating them. It's super weird. Then we have this another story, which I think takes place in Oregon, which is like taxidermy. And I thought the taxidermy was going to come alive, but get this. There's like Sasquatch, and then there's Sasquatch's kid. Sasquatch's kid gets like murdered by a car on the road. This taxidermist makes it into some taxidermy, and all of a sudden the father or the mother just comes into the shop and just starts going crazy. And then the next short story was in Minnesota, on this like cloud island, where there's this like bottomless pit that's kind of like a gateway to hell, and like a bunch of creatures come out there, and then there's like guardians of that bottomless pit and all the creatures that come out. And then there's just like these 4 kids that are in an initiation for some type of college frat group, I'm pretty sure. And they just have to walk through the woods, and they get caught with this creature, and these soldiers super weird. And one thing about the story is that they could have gone like the short route through the forest and cut off some time, or they could have just walked along the road, which is like, I think they say 12 or 6 miles. And like as a cross country runner, I'll be like, I'll take the road route just because if you run the whole thing, you'll be done with the island in an hour. And then the last short story that's released right now is a Florida one. And this one is with like 2 police officers. This one is way too weird for me. Scary, yes, because you got some like dark lights and you got flashlights, and that always creates a scene with some easy jump cuts, and yeah. So 50 States of Fright is alright. I mean, nothing like, wow, this is some good horror stuff. Kind of cringy at some points. It's alright. I mean, it's a Quibi show. And then this next Quibi show is a docu-series called Run This City. And this Run This City is kind of like a micro-scale version of Trump. And this docu-series focuses on the super young mayor called Jazel Correa, who is mayor of Fall River, Massachusetts. And Jazel Correa is super cocky, flamboyant, just doesn't really truly care about his reputation. And this docuseries is interesting. I mean, it makes you care about a city's mayor position, because honestly, I have no idea who's mayor of my town. But apparently in Fall River, they truly care about who's mayor. And we talk about like the past, the Fall River, and Jazel Correa is like the youngest mayor in history of Fall River. And he gets into some little legal trouble. And before I get into that legal trouble, he does some good things to the city that like previous mayors didn't do, but this docuseries never talks about those good things. Like, I would have liked to see what exactly did Jazel Correa do to flip the budget from a negative outcome to a positive outcome. Like, he did that, and there's no really explanation as to how exactly he did that. And the reason Jazel Correa got into some legal trouble was because, well, he was an entrepreneur for a company called Snow Owl, which was an app that completely failed. But supposedly he took some early investor money into the company and just spent it on some non-Snow Owl things, whether that be going to the club or alcohol or like a $50,000 watch. And he was convicted guilty of these things later on, so then they had to do a re-election. He gets voted again for that re-election, and then that's the third election, he gets booted out. Jazel Correa, do I believe he did those very things? Yes, because in the docuseries, which they don't really care about Jazel Correa's like character reputation, they show all the bad stuff, and they show some quotes where he literally says, we all do some adult entertainment from here and here. And I'm like, you're a mayor of the town. You're supposed to uphold the integrity of the town. You just don't go to the stripping club every day. You just don't smoke a cigar in front of a camera. That's just not things I would do if I were mayor. I'm just saying. So Jazel Correa, a micro scale Trump. Very similar. And was the series pretty good? Yeah. I mean, not too interesting since it's on such a small like version of the United States, like just one town, one mayor election every like 2 years. Very interesting story, but just super small. Like, I would love to see maybe a governor or maybe like the president of the United States. That would be cool. And the next show is called Singled Out. I do not have good things to say about this show, Singled Out, which is hosted by Keke Palmer and some other dude, but this show is so rigged. And I'm a fan of the Bachelor universe. Singled Out, I really did not like any moment of this show. And what this show is that you get like 30 random people who have connected with this one person online, and this show is super LGBTQ plus friendly. I don't know if that's the acronym, but anyways, they got some homosexuals on there, some drag queens. So super open to everything, even though like 50% of them aren't just heterosexuals, and I think that's the majority of the population, so they're a little bit biased. Anyways, that's not the part that gets me. So they have these 30 people who are gonna compete for this one person, and there's like 3 rounds. And each round, the first round is like choosing like a 50-50 multiple choice question. Like, are you an introvert or an extrovert, A or B? And for some reason, a lot of people get eliminated on that question. 30 people. So if it's a 50-50, then 15 people will go home right there. And then from 15, because they asked 2 questions, another 50-50 split would mean, like, let's just say 7 people are left. But in every single show, there's like 3 or 4 people left. Never 7. Which makes me think that this show has to be rigged. It has to be. And just, I don't like rigged shows. And then they have this little competition. It's like, what's the point of the competition? And the whole time, the person's blind to whoever is going to be picked. And it's like a super quick show, like 5 minutes. And it just kind of takes like the meaning out of love. And they're supposedly super happy at the end of the day with the matchmaking. I don't know. Seemed a little sketchy to me. And the next show that we have to talk about is Fierce Queens, hosted by Reese Witherspoon. Fierce Queens just talks about the female version of all the species of animals out there, whether that be the ants or the cheetahs or some like fireflies. And I really like this nature documentary. Sometimes I get a little bored since, you know, it's just animals with this narrator just talking over the B-roll. And since it's just on Quibi and each episode's less than 10 minutes, they really talk about how these females, whether it be a spider who's taking advantage of these like super tiny male spiders, which was pretty cool. We talk about how ants have these queens, super crazy, just murder stuff. Cheetahs just killing some animals. It's a fierce world out there, and those females are right there on top for some of those species. Yeah, well, you gotta talk about the seahorse, where the male actually like holds the babies pregnant. I think it's the only species that does it. Interesting stuff, and I liked it. Fierce Queen's pretty good. Next Quibi show is a sneaker docuseries called You Ain't Got These, hosted by Lena Waithe. And I really enjoyed this sneaker docuseries because it talks about the good and it talks about the bad. So the good is that everyone comes together for like a brand new release of sneakers. It brings a bunch of people together, the sneaker culture. And the bad is that a lot of people just aren't a part of the sneaker culture. Some people, like many minorities, are just cut out off of like sneaker production, whether that be like the design, the colorways. They're just not in there. And then this show kind of focuses on a couple people who are African Americans and African American women who are taking part in designing a shoe. We also talk about how this shoe business is kind of a little sneaky and it's just for some money sometimes, where people are just waiting in line just to resell them. It's like, what's the point of that? You shouldn't be doing that. Give the people the opportunity who actually want the shoes, allow them to buy them for retail price and not at an uptick in price. It's just kind of like a rich person's game now. sadly, although you could make a lot of cash money from this, you ain't got these inside look. And it's also talking about like addiction to shoes. Like I've seen a lot of people have just racks and racks of shoes, and like, do you need all those shoes? Do you wear those shoes? I mean, I only have like 3 pairs of shoes right now. Would I take like 20 pairs of basketball shoes? Not really. I mean, what's the point of that? I do have my eye on a couple basketball shoes out there, whether that be like the SpongeBob Kyrie's or the Colin Kaepernick Air Force Ones. Like a couple shoes out there got me intrigued from this show. And got me passionate about shoes for a quick second. But then I realized it's just material things. And this next show is called Prodigy. Prodigy focuses on a bunch of young athletes who are kind of uprising in their respective sports. The first episode is of Jalen Green, who just recently committed to the G League of the NBA, not NCAA Division I basketball. And Jalen Green is the #1 recruit for basketball right now. And we get just like this little story of how his stepfather was first his basketball coach, and they just bonded over that relationship. And we go to like a bunch of other people in not too popular sports, whether that be swimming or female boxing or like the Olympics for snowboarding, running. We do get this defensive end. I forget his name, Kerry Foreman. Maybe he could be the next Chase Young. Cool to see his story. We have this female athlete runner who I think is at LSU and who's broken some records there, Sha'Carri Richardson. And Sha'Carri Richardson was about to commit suicide, and her family rose her out of that downturn in her life. I really did like Prodigy. Nice inside look. If I had to tweak this show at all as like maybe a director, you do have Megan Rapinoe as a host, but I would like to see the host more involved and also cover more athletes in the more famous sports, whether that be more football athletes or more basketball athletes or more baseball athletes. Because do I honestly care about a swimming athlete? Not really. Alright, we are back, and another Quibi show that I like to talk about is the I Promise docuseries, where we finally get an inside look as to how the I Promise school is running things. And this is the LeBron James charter school that he founded in Akron, Ohio. And the I Promise school is doing a couple things differently. They have this I Promise pledge where the students have to say a pledge and they have to stick to it. And then they also have something called like I Promise circles, where all the students just get in a circle with the teacher and they just speak their feelings. And there's a heavy emphasis on affection, whether that be hugging, just putting your feelings of affection to words. And this docuseries was really, really good. Could even be making me become a teacher, because the education system in many places is just flat out messed up, where these teachers just don't truly care about the kids. And I would love to be a teacher who cares about the kids and makes them have some power, because it's just not all teacher on students. It's a classroom where everyone's kind of pretty much in a level playing field, where the teacher does have a little bit more authority. And throughout this whole show, we of course get some interviews from the principal, the vice principal, several teachers, but it really focuses on the story of 4 kids. We have Deshauna, Vincent, Nate, and Scout. My favorite has to be Nate. And all these people, all these little kids have problems. Vincent has cerebral palsy, so his muscles are a little bit smaller than normal. And he's a very unique personality. They call him like the old man inside a young man's body, because he really does talk formal. I do have to say so myself, and he just loves Halloween. He loves it. Then we have Nate, who miraculously gets glasses like halfway through the school year. It doesn't help him out too much, not like a miracle worker, but he is behind some grade levels in reading, and he just sometimes gets super frustrated and just walks out of the class. Then we have Scout, where Scout's mom just doesn't really get to see Scout too much because she's not in great health. Then we have Desana, who's super sassy. But I promise, such a good show. We get a couple looks at LeBron James. And the controversy of the I Promise School is that it is a charter school. It does randomly select some students via like a lottery system. But it really does help out the kids and kind of relieves some stress, similar to like what a universal basic income could do, because then you have like this open food bank where some parents who just are struggling right now and maybe are homeless, don't have some food for the night, they could pick up some food, whether that be some simple cereal, some pasta, whatever it is, it's open there, and the school helps. I really do appreciate the I Promise School, and it was a great inside look. This next show I had a huge problem with, and this is Nikki Fresh. Nikki Fresh is this comedy series, which I don't know if it's scripted or unscripted, but Nicole Richie, who I have no idea who she is, makes like these 6 songs about the environment, but she's like trolling because she doesn't truly care about the environment. Her and this like assistant just acts super dumb. I just don't like Nikki Fresh. And another show that's also just not on the downside is Gone Mental with Leor. And the Rob Gronkowski episode was cool. David Dobrik was also cool to see. But it's just super repetitive because they never see Leor failing. It's always working, which is super hard to believe. Like, you can't be that much of a mentalist where it's always working. And the last 2 Quibi shows that I would like to talk about, and then I'll talk about a third that I'm currently watching. The Stranger. The Stranger is an interesting story or thriller where we have this Maika Monroe playing this girl named Claire who's struggling right now. She's super young, just moved from Kansas to LA to become a poem writer. She is kind of doing like an Uber ride to get some money, and there's this guy, a psychopath named Carl E, who gets in that Uber, threatens to kill her, and it's just like a whole hunt where Claire picks up this 7-Eleven dude, and it's just a whole hunt around the city where we go hour by hour, and this all story takes place within a day. There's this one really good like cinematography plot line where we thought that Carl E was in the bathroom, and then Claire tells like the police like, oh, shoot up, go into the bathroom, because it has like Carl E's shoes, and you think it's Carl E, and then you realize, oh, it's the 7-Eleven dude with Carl E's shoes, and he's just died. There's this one point in the story where Claire and the 7-Eleven dude are kind of falling in love, and then they just get into this random argument, and Claire just mentions how like this has happened in the past with a psychopath in high school. A little weird. And then the last show I'll talk about is Aqua Donkeys, and this is the worst show I've ever seen. And this is like 2 40-year-old pool people kind of going after this one girl and acting stupid along the way. The worst show ever. Like, I'm dead serious. The comedy doesn't make any sense. The plot, super slow and just boring, and the people decisions just don't make any sense. And that's it. Thank you for watching this MWG story review podcast. And that's it from me here. Make sure you bless and peace out.